5, about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
Welcome to Tales from the Field. My name is Bradley Ball, and we are back and better than ever. Seriously, better than ever. I have been sick as a dog for the last couple of weeks, so I finally have a voice again. And we went on break for the 4th of July holiday. I'm curious about what everybody did for their fun plans. And then on top of it, Niraj, you're going to have to work on the banner for this because we're going to have to throw this out multiple times. But it is Alex Power's birthday. Alex is not here with us today because he is off and he is celebrating. So happy birthday, Mr. Alex. We are going to Alex all the things as much as we possibly can. While still celebrating Data Warehouse, because if we don't, Brad Chat's going to get very upset. But we're also talking.
I just think it's a good idea.
Well, it's probably always a good idea, right? We are also number one thing. We are joined by Mr. Christopher Schmidt, the PM from the Real-Time Intelligence team. So excited to have you here. Saw you at DataCon. You had a great pre-con out there with our good friend Matt Gordon, MVP for Microsoft. A great turnout that we had out there. I know I had a lot of good people in my pre-con for a full day on Microsoft Fabric for the data engineer. And then we've got a lot going on. I know this weekend, I want to say in South Florida, Brad and Dan are going to be down there, and they're going to be doing a whole bunch of presenting, I would imagine, on Fabric and Fabric Data Warehouse. Because what else would Brad talk about? I mean,
why would I talk about anything else?
I think that's a perfect question. I don't know why you would ever talk about anything else other than the Data Warehouse.
Yes, all right. I will in fact be talking about Data Warehouse.
So it's been a little while since we were together. So just off the cuff, I'm going to go around to everybody. Give me a quick, 10 to 30 seconds. What are you excited to talk about this month? We were going over the June update. July will be out very, very soon, but we're going to go over June. But there's also a lot of blogs of things that have happened and have dropped for us in between the June update right now, where we are in July. So please feel free to pick anything you want. Chris, I think I'm going to start with you. What are you excited about?
Yeah, so it was the end of the fiscal last month for Microsoft and June 30th. So for anyone who doesn't know, our fiscal year always ends June 30th. So there's always a lot of really exciting stuff that always happens at the end of June. So I'm really excited for a lot of the features that we're pushing out on RTI. And I think there were 3 or 4 really, kind of clever and valuable features that are really starting to come out and really starting to help customers embrace really event-driven architectures in Fabric. So super exciting to talk about those, and looking forward to, I think, kind of what's planned over the next couple of months as well.
Very, very nice. Very nice. So Brad, how about you? We were looking, and there's a couple things for Data Warehouse that are not even in the Data Warehouse section. What are you excited about to talk about today?
I mean, of course, obviously the Data Warehouse updates are going to be the best part of our discussion for the day as per the usual arrangement. But honestly, there's looking at the update, there's a ton of stuff out this month for notebooks. Some of that we'll talk about with the Data Warehouse side of things, but just notebook updates galore across SQL integration, some stuff with Copilot, variable libraries, just all kinds of great things. We know people love the notebook experience. Just across the board, it's taken off like crazy. We get people starting to use it more and more in the SQL side of things. So it's great to just see the investment continue in the notebook experience across all of the different workloads. So lots of great stuff in there for that. But we'll dive into some of those in a bit.
Well, and I love it because I do a session and I constantly update it, harness the power of Microsoft Fabric using notebooks. And whenever we add some new functionality to notebooks, it's new functionality that I get to add. I've got a whole bunch of old demos. I rotate things in and out of there depending on the audience and what they're interested in. Sometimes I'll let them do a choose your own adventure. But I love this, and I love how we can continue to expand that functionality. And one of the things you and I have talked about for a long time is how it needs to include the Data Warehouse so much more, how we really need that to be a first-class citizen within those notebooks. And we are getting there, and we are seeing this integration just become tighter and tighter over time, which is absolutely fantastic. Niraj, how about you? What are you excited about?
I'm going to cover up for Alex. So I'm going to speak about ADF today. So if you go to the ADF general availability, I just kept the link in there. A lot of things became GA this month. Support for Git enabled ADF factories was one of the things. Mount your data factory from ADX UX was one of them. So there are a lot of things from ADF side that went GA this month. And happy birthday, Alex.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of that pouring in. So Niraj, you've got it up there. Happy birthday. Data Evangelist, thank you for joining us. We've got happy birthday to Alex. Another happy birthday from Mr. Bradley Schacht. Dan threw it out there. Jason Campbell threw it out there. I'm going to throw one out there as soon as I actually have time to be able to type. But thank you all for joining us, and also happy of the happiest to Mr. Alex. We are going to do our best to Alex all the things. And I think if we're going to Alex all the things, one of the things we need to do is we need to throw some focus over on Reddit. Reddit is a massive growing community we have for Microsoft Fabric. We have, I haven't looked at the latest number, but I want to say we are over 15,000 members of the Reddit group out there. We are in the top 1% of Reddit groups. If you're looking for assistance, if you're looking for AMAs that we do with the product group, you definitely want to make sure and check out and join our Reddit group. Niraj, if you do me a favor, buddy, if you'd find a link for our Reddit group and throw it out there for Microsoft Fabric, that's definitely something that we want to make sure people check out. And we will make sure any of the links that we cover today that I've got open in another tab, we are going to throw in the description of the video. So if you are watching this on repeat, and I'm going to do some updates as we're going along, but if you're watching this on repeat, just go check, refresh the video, check the description of the video. The links will be there. We'll let you know, but we're going to make sure and put these in the comments as we're going today, if you want to follow along with us. And Niraj has already put our first link out there. And this is going to be for the blog that we're going to start going through. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the updates that we got in the June release update. There's a lot of blogs and a whole bunch of wonderful things that we got after that as well. And when we start with this, I'm going to want to go over to you, Chris. But real quick, let me throw this up. This is the Reddit link. Thank you, Niraj, for getting that out there. So make sure and go check that out and go and join our Reddit group. Okay. So Chris, when we were talking in the pre-show, of course, our wonderful friend.
Did you skip Dan? You didn't ask Dan what his favorite thing.
Did I skip Dan? Oh my goodness!
The heck, man.
I can't believe I did. Dan, I'm sorry. I'm not meaning to treat you like
Nobody
Josh at all. That's not what this is about. Dan, what are you excited about?
Well, since you skipped me, I'm just going to go straight to aliens. Capturing me, or Sasquatch. But no, my most favorite thing, and I've done a couple videos on this, is free things, right? And with RTI, real-time intelligence, the team is providing some cool things that I'll cover here when we go through the links. But I don't want to share too much, but that's what I'm most excited about some free training, I believe, that's coming up that you can sign up for via this blog post here. And Alien.
Excellent. And there we go. Good morning, Alessandro. We really appreciate you joining us. Brad, you're absolutely right. Aliens, I'm just going to throw this out there. Dan, we don't have a data set yet of tracking the alien and UAP, UFO, whatever they're calling them now, interactions. I can't believe that you don't have a data set that we could use in some type of pre-con or videos or stuff like that. I mean, so I guess I'm throwing out a request to you. That seems like a data set that we should be using, that you should be able to not only be able to show some ingestion of data, but maybe some visualizations in Microsoft Fabric. I think there's some really wonderful things.
Even Aliens wants to reach Alex Power, so let's create it.
You should check the live stream chat there. Just happen to, not that I have anything bookmarked or anything, but there is a data set out there for UFO sightings.
I think we've hit on something. Before the black men, before the black helicopters start to come in, and the little men in black come out and neuralize us, let's go ahead and let's go to the things that we know we're going to remember, the very memorable things from the June update. And of course, I'm going to start off with Chris, because as we were talking about it, there were a lot of wonderful things, really, really great updates that we had for real-time intelligence. And Chris, do you want me to go to the top of it, or is there something you'd like me to call out?
I think we should. Well, first, thanks for starting at the bottom. I love that you skipped like all the way to the bottom of the article, and we'll work our way up. So it's the plight of real-time intelligence. I guess it's the alphabeticalness of it, starting with R. But I think let's just start at the top. Like I said, there's a lot of really exciting things that are coming out. So probably the first thing to call out and be aware of is you can now query log analytics and application insights data directly from Eventhouse within Fabric. So there's no need to leave and go do that from Azure now. You can go gather all that log analytics data. You can query it with KQL all from right within Fabric, which means you can create alerts on it. You can do a lot of those other things. So there's some really exciting things there. Before, it was a little bit of a pain where you had to leave and you had to do it kind of a different way, but now you can grab it all in one spot.
Absolutely. Now, and I had wanted to ask you the question. We talked about this a little bit in the pre-show. So when I first look at this, the first thing I can't help but think is if I put application insights on my Microsoft Fabric workspace, does this specifically let me pull in information for Microsoft Fabric, or is this the type of scenario where, let's say I have application insights, I've got Azure monitoring, and I've got log analytics set up on, say, like my Azure SQL databases or some other resources that I've got that I could pull that in? Because I know beforehand, like in a KQL database outside of Microsoft Fabric, one of the things I can do in Data Explorer, I could use a query URI to be able to pull in that log analytics information to begin running queries, and I could centralize information and things like that. Is that what this does? Is this for the external stuff, or is this for the Fabric stuff?
This is more for the external stuff right now. So you take all the external pieces, and so if you have, say, any Azure resource that's writing to log analytics where you've got those diagnostic logs on, you can then connect to it and just query it from within here. If you want to monitor what's happening within Fabric, I think you certainly could create something where you're maybe taking those insights and writing them into application insights, and then you're kind of going full circle, right? So you're coming from Fabric, writing out, and then reading it from here. But its primary kind of purpose is really be able to just kind of query this Azure Monitor data directly from that KQL query set.
Wow. Okay. Oh, sorry.
So
go ahead.
I had a question on this, because this is kind of exciting, because we have Azure SQL DB, we have all these different components, right, Chris? So that means that I can have a centralized place where I can send, rather than sending to a storage account and having to write all those complex queries in that, I can now send it, I can connect to those log analytics spaces directly from my Eventhouse and query across, let's just say 30 Azure SQL DB log analytics and
30 Azure SQL DBs. If you think about just kind of walking through it, let's think about a typical analytics deployment that you have in Azure today, right? You probably have Azure storage, and then if you've configured diagnostic settings on storage, you've got the storage level, blob level, table level, queue level, file level, like all these different diagnostic settings you need to create, and then ADF. And then you need to go create, then you have some different logs for Azure Synapse and Databricks and all these different places that are logging to hopefully a central log analytics workspace, but maybe not. I know in not all enterprises it's that way. Some of them create a different log analytics workspace based on the team. But now you can leverage Eventhouse, and like you said, you can query across all these different things in kind of this one spot, right? So, hey, I'm just going to go create these connections, then I can start bringing all this data together, or I can start to analyze it and figure out what's going on. It's really helpful for lineage, definitely.
Awesome. And then not Activator, but we could throw, like you were saying, dashboards on top of that, and we could alert on different things before we even, wow, that really simplifies things. That's kind of exciting.
It is exciting. Agree. It's not even the most exciting thing that I'm excited for, but it's exciting.
Well, and I got to tell you, I just love the idea that we can take this. We could really use Fabric as this central repository to be able to pull in all this data that we're storing in log analytics. And I know Azure Monitor has alerts, but again, we could do this with Data Activator. Of course, once I turn on Zoom at once, it has to initialize 50 times. So don't worry, you'll be seeing that screen over and over again throughout the broadcast. But seriously, we can pull in all this data. We could use Data Activator for alerts. We could have dashboards. And one of the things that I think is absolutely brilliant, again, when we look at the functionality of a KQL database, it is meant for direct query. I mean, it really, really is. That is a great purpose for it, because the queries that you can run against KQL databases are ridiculously powerful and ridiculously fast and can scale against multiple different data sets. Hold it together, Brad. It's okay. My bad. The
engine works so much differently, and it's always a A caveat that I always tell everyone when I'm talking to them about direct query in Eventhouse is when you're thinking about a KQL database, whatever you think you know about direct query, please don't bring it with you, because the engine operates totally differently in the direct query space on top of Eventhouse. The concurrency limits, the performance of your query, it's much different for how Power BI interprets and executes those queries against KQL than it is against any other database engine. And so it's always something to really kind of be mindful of. And so that does have an impact on, how you model data, how you think about data in an Eventhouse. And so it's definitely a completely unique way of doing it.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit more because I think this is a fantastic addition. And not only that, I see a ton of stuff being built off of this eventually, right? Like I can see you could build a whole monitoring space for people to be able to consume their data, templated reports for this. And I can't help but look at this with my consulting brain from when we all were consultants long ago. And think of, this would be a great thing to be able to go in and to be able to build with customers. Or if I go back to my DBA brain, to be able to go, I want this type of real-time monitoring and information that I can take a look at. This had me very, very excited. It has Zoomit excited. And but let's go ahead and let's keep going. Zoomit is like, go closer.
Zoomit's excited. It's eager. Let's get moving.
It is. I was going to say, I think we've got about 10 pop-ups now. We need a little counter. I wish we had a little counter icon. And Niraj, if you had a whiteboard behind you, I'd just be like, every time Zoomit pops up, put a little mark on the whiteboard. Yeah. So as we go down a little bit further, using Copilot to be able to write queries for real-time dashboards, you know what? Let's just zoom in on it. So we've had this capability within Copilot for quite some time. But this is a method to be able to help with actually building the real-time dashboards, not just writing the KQL queries. I love to see this advance that we have in place because one of the things that this tells me, and again, Niraj and I just did a presentation on Copilots and Microsoft Fabric and data agents for Data Tobacco this past weekend. And this is something that has not made it into that presentation yet, but it is very soon. I go through all the different services and I show how we can use Copilots within them. But I love how we're branching out this functionality to continue to make Fabric a place where you kind of have an easy button to be able to do these complex things or to be able to figure them out and make it so much easier to really democratize the capability of people to be able to produce items in Fabric.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier to write. Right. It really speeds you up. So you can just tell it, hey, this is what I want you to go do. I don't have to spend all my time figuring out what's the exact KQL and in what order should I write it in. Just have Copilot do it for you.
Absolutely. And I don't know about y'all, but I've been using Copilot so much to be able to just automate simple tasks or even branch into things. It's been a long time since I wrote coding projects, but one of the things I've been looking into more and more is MCPs. I'm not going to code an MCP, but I can use GitHub Copilot to be able to code that for me in just a few minutes, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, this was something that when I saw this, I got very excited about this. And Zoomit is super excited about it. There we go. There's another pop-up. So we're at 12 now. But the Eventstream SQL operator, this is a really big deal, introducing the capability to be able to process SQL in Eventstream. So Chris, can you tell me a little bit more about this?
Yeah, so before, your options in an Eventstream were really they were predefined and they were really limited, right? You were really able to execute very simple transformations of data, right? And when you think about transformations in Eventstream, one thing we always talk about is, remember, you're working on an individual event payload. You're not necessarily working on an entire set of data, so you need to think about it, right? But even those predefined operations, whether you're filtering, aggregating, doing some joins, there's things in there that you might want to go do that you can't go do, right? You might want to go implement things like tumbling windows. You might want to go implement some filtering logic through your SQL code, or you might want to create some dependencies on that. So now that the SQL code operator is there, it really opens up the door to being able to get much more advanced and sophisticated with what type of transformations you want to have happen, right? So now instead of needing to have maybe 2 or 3 filter steps, right? So maybe I'm doing a filter and a group by, and I'm trying to kind of join this data with some other stream that's coming in. Now I can just do it all from one operator within SQL, or I can get sophisticated where I can create these tumbling windows and these other things to look at my data as it's flowing through. So it opens up the door for much more complex transformations that you want to do within your event stream without needing to kind of write it as is and revert to custom code downstream later after the fact.
Very, very nice. And I love this again because SQL is such a ubiquitous language. SQL has been around for decades and decades. And I can't tell you how many times I've met people who do jobs, and it could be somebody like a data scientist where people assume, oh, you live in R and you live in Python, but they're actually much more comfortable with SQL because they've been using SQL, and it could be in a variety of sources. It could be in SQL Server, it could be in like a Fabric data warehouse, could be in MySQL, could be in Postgres. I mean, all of those SQL variations that we have are so close to one another that more people understand SQL and are comfortable with SQL. And this also, SQL has a lot of transformative powers within the language in and of itself. To me, this is massive. Anytime we can take something like a real-time intelligence and we can go, here's how we're going to perform these transformations. Here's how we're going to group or aggregate this data. I think there's a wide base of people that understand how to be able to use this language. And again, it's all about that democratization. I remember when we looked at Power BI as the democratization of reporting. And as we infuse more Copilot, we look at some of these complex functions and we add more coding languages that people are familiar with. I feel like we just continue to democratize that process.
So, Chris, I have two questions for you on this, if you happen to know the answer. One, do you know like what flavor of SQL are we talking about? It's like ANSI SQL, T-SQL. And then my other question is, do we have like, how broad is it? How broad can we go with this? Do we have any like documentation for that already that you happen to know of, where we can see like what kind of commands are and aren't supported inside of here? Is that something that maybe is coming later on?
Yeah, it's not the full T-SQL, so it's not everything that you can do. It's very similar. I believe it's a port from what you could do in Stream Analytics. So in Stream Analytics, you had a lot of SQL capabilities that were available. I believe it covers the entire SQL capability feature set that was available in Stream Analytics, but I'd have to check on it. But I can post a link in the chat too. I know there's some documentation on it.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Fantastic.
Super excited.
Yeah, so Chris is bringing the goods today. He's bringing the receipts, as they like to say on 90 Day Fiance and Real Housewives of fill in the blank. Don't ask me how I know that, but yeah. When we run these T-SQL statements, right, Chris, please don't. Are these coming from the hot cache, cold cache? When I'm looking at my consumption units within the Fabric workspace, do we know where these metrics are going to be, like come from, so we can see how it's
so operating? Remember, this is all in Eventstream, so there's not necessarily hot cache, cold cache. It's outside of Eventhouse. It's outside of the other pieces. It would be housed in what's called the stream processor consumption of your event stream. So if you look at an event stream, you'll see it consumes a certain amount of CUs, and then if you hover over it, you'll see it break down by categories. It'll go down by data ingress egress charges. It'll go down by the uptime for the event stream, and then it'll include another one for stream processor. And this would all be included in that stream processor consumption.
Awesome. Thank you. So no, that's awesome. Nice.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one, because I don't want to consume the whole call, and there's a lot we want to go through. There's a ton of exciting updates. I want to make sure Brad gets time to talk about Data Warehouse.
Thank you so much. That's so
you're welcome, buddy. So yeah, go up a little bit though, because there is one really cool thing. So event streams now support multi-schema inference, which is very important. When you were handling event streams previously, if you were to pass multiple schemas from the same source, so let's say I had an event hub, or I had something that was just passing, a bunch of different schemas into it, the event stream itself didn't really know what to do with that. There was ways to work around it. You had to change the destination ingestion to be able to say ignore it and kind of process it, but it was a little bit of a tricky thing to kind of work your way through. But now event streams infer different schemas, so it can tell now and say, okay, this is schema A, this is schema B, this is schema C. And so you can create multiple filters and multiple outputs, so multiple stream processor jobs, where you can say, okay, I want this schema to go to this destination table. I want this schema to go to this other destination table. And so now you can create kind of one event stream, and maybe I have, all my data go to different tables in an event house, or maybe I have my fact data go to my event house, and then I have the like customer, and I have my dimensional attributes go into a lakehouse destination, so I can go load it into my warehouse, or or load it into my notebook or whatever I need. Brad, the warehouse bit, I put that in there just for you. I live with that just for you.
I mean, I love it. It's great. Great addition.
You had him at hello.
So now you can create kind of these multiple different outputs and these multiple different destinations where you want to send all this data to. So it's really kind of moving from needing to kind of handle it separately and kind of working through some of the different pieces to really making it kind of a no-code kind of approach. So now you can take all this data, you can have multiple schemas, they're all passing in, you can be streaming all these things to a single event stream, and then you can go put all that data into wherever you want to send it to. One thing to always remember with event streams, fewer is better. So you really want to get as close to singular event streams as you can. You don't really want to create an environment where you've got 20, 30, 40 different event streams all running around. It's different from pipelines that way.
Okay. So this is kind of like when I do my indexing internals talk and I tell people you can have 999 9-clustered indexes on a table. And I say, that's not a goal. You don't want to do that. That would be bad. And so you can have multiple sources, and there's going to be places where it makes sense to be able to have multiple sources. But ideally, if you can, you want to have a one-to-one. You don't want to, just because you can, you don't want to say if you have like 4 or 5 different event streams, now combine them all into one event stream.
Yeah, it's
right?
not a hard and fast rule. You don't always want to go down to one event stream. But being able to handle multiple schemas certainly helps with the ability to kind of get down as closer as you can. But really, especially when we're dealing with streaming data, it's very common to have like a schema registry, or maybe it's coming from Kafka, or maybe it's a schema registry you're already using in an event hub or an IoT hub where you have different devices that are just sending totally different schemas coming from different places. Now you don't really need to filter and create a whole bunch of rules or go process that in some other platform like Eventhouse or whatever. You can now do it all through a no-code approach, just kind of in this event stream here. And it's a super easy way for you to kind of create all those filters and then your destinations where you want it to go.
Okay, so if you're living in a world where you've already got these multiple different schemas being processed, or you're looking at doing some type of migration, that's a good rule of thumb of what are you looking at to do multiple schemas versus the one-to-one scenario.
It's super common in streaming data that, like, when you're pulling data from Kafka, you would not have one schema. I'd say that's the exception, not the rule.
Okay, that's good to know. So this is going to allow people who are looking at how do they migrate their frameworks into real-time intelligence. This gives them the capability to do that if they're already in a more complex environment like Kafka, where they've got multiple schemas coming through.
Right. Because the only way to do it before was really to write all the data into an event house as one big table. So you'd write the data into event house as one big JSON blob for each row, and then you had to create a bunch of different update policies. That works, and that's great if you have, say, 5, 10. If you have 100 different schemas that are coming through, it's not really you're going to run into some scalability challenges there. So you want to be able to create something that's a little bit cleaner for you.
Okay, great stuff. Okay,
then,
so go ahead.
I was going to say, before I go to this one, there is one other link that I wanted to share. It missed the cutoff for the June updates blog. But one thing that I'm most excited for, believe it or not, even over schema inference, is continuous ingestion from Azure storage. So I put a link over there. Someone could help me and kind of to put a link in the comments as well. But I'm very excited for this feature because it's really, really powerful. So if you have data that's landing into an Azure storage account today, if you think about what it would normally take you to move that into Fabric or to a pipeline or a notebook, kind of how you're going to go pick that up, you can set up what's called continuous ingestion from Azure storage. And what continuous ingestion allows you to do is essentially subscribe to that storage account. So we subscribe to the storage account, and then as new files get added into the storage account, we automatically pick them up and load them into the event house for you. So there is no need to create anything, orchestration tools. There's no need to create any pipelines. It's just if files show up in storage, we just pick it up, we load it into event house. It's ready to go. The little animated GIF here does, I think, a good job kind of showing how it works through. And just kind of flows all that data in, right? And so whether you're landing data in, every couple of seconds into a storage account, or whether you're landing it in once a day, you can pull all this data as it's hitting the storage account and really just load it directly into an event house. And then when you couple that with which this article doesn't really talk about. But when you couple this with what you can do with an update policy or what you can do with some other things in Eventhouse, you can essentially process and transform data from Azure storage to a Power BI report or to wherever you need it to go within a couple of seconds, right? Because that data is landing in storage, writing into your Eventhouse, and you're running an update policy to modify and transform the data what you want. And then you have Power BI running in direct queries. So you can have reports refreshing in mere seconds compared to kind of moving it through a pipeline or kind of a cold path approach on a kind of Lambda cold path. So super excited as someone who's been in the industry for a really long time. I think this is easily the coolest feature that I've come across in a long time. Super excited. But it's actually so easy that I think I've had a couple of people tell me, like, there's no way that this is real. Like, this has to be a sales thing.
So there's no way this is real, Chris. This is like me wanting aliens.
I'm telling you, it is.
But so no, and I have a serious question. I know I'm being goofy today. I'm having a good time. I haven't seen these fellas in a while, except for DataCon, where we got to see each other briefly for like 30 seconds. We're halfway across the country. We never see each other. We see each other for 30 seconds. I'm like, oh, sad face. So I think it was the storage account trigger that we used to use in a pipeline, and it would run, but occasionally if there was a heavy workload, it would miss some of those files, right? This takes care of that. Like, this is much better than how that used to process the files, and that's okay if you never looked at that one, but I'm pretty sure you have. But we used to warn people, you would miss a file or two. This has the opportunity to just constantly stream regardless of how many files I throw out there.
Yeah, so it creates a checkpoint. So we don't process every file every time. So the way that the storage account triggers would work before is they would iterate over, say, like everything in the container. So, hey, a new file got added, but I should iterate over the container and kind of go find all my stuff. And so there were some challenges and there's some limitations with that. Plus, it wasn't really real time. Right, there was usually a latency and some things that happened. So the way that this works is we subscribe to the storage account, and then as soon as the storage blob creation trigger gets created from the diagnostics logs, we pick it up and we load the payload into an Eventhouse. So we're actually subscribing to the storage blob created trigger, and then as that blob gets triggered and as it gets created, then we just pull that one individual file and we load it across.
Roger that.
This
So
fantastic.
Chris,
Oh, go ahead, Brad.
Okay. Is there a spot where you look at this and say, for these scenarios, you should continue to use the data factory route? Or are you at the point, like, is this kind of, if you're loading it from storage, this is the default way to do things? If you've got stuff in data factory, like, you don't have to move it over, obviously, unless you want to. It's running and fine and working, no need to rock the boat. But are there scenarios where you still say, even if you're loading from storage, you should probably still go with data factory in these kind of edge cases?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and it's a great question, Brad. And I think we should do some work on our side to kind of help articulate that a little bit. For now, this doesn't work on storage accounts that are behind a private link. I know.
Sure.
Please don't hate me. But it's coming. So that's one. So if you need to connect to a storage account behind a private link, you'd still need to continue to use data pipelines. And the other thing I would say is this is really optimized for loading data into KQL and into Eventhouse.
Sure.
And so really what you're after is, whether you call it time series data or fact data or event data or transaction data, like, you're really going for, like, whatever that is, like orders, facts, transactions, whatever. I don't know if I would recommend using this through for like dimensional attributes or for something else that I might have, right? If I'm loading into like a customer's dimension, or if I'm trying to pull products dimension, I don't know that I would use this for that. Sure. Because that's not really what this is great for. You'd probably want to push that through your normal kind of pipeline notebook process to do your transformations and clean up your data and get it to kind of your gold layer and then shortcut it in if you're going to. But I think you could have some debates about that as well. I think you start opening conversations about, do you need to track history, if you want to track history, et cetera.
No, I think that's awesome. I love when you always ask the question, I've got two options or two ways that I can do this. Give me the answer as to how to choose between when it's a super short answer like that, like, oh, well, yeah, we don't support private links, but we will. But otherwise, you're pretty much good to go for any of the time series stuff. Like the simpler the answer in those cases, the better. So that's awesome to see, like right from the start, that that's already the case.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's really powerful. It's easily the most excited I've been about something for a while in the RTI space. But fresh on the heels and making me choose and giving me like heart palpitations because I can't keep up with all the different stuff. And Brad, you kind of mentioned earlier, MCP. Eventhouse shipped MCP server compatibility last month as well. So now you can connect an Eventhouse to an MCP server, and then you can query it through however you want to go configure those. So I think it's early days in that. I think that there's a lot of things that'll expand kind of in that space. But between kind of these features, you can really start to kind of see the event-driven story starting to come together of, hey, as things happen in my environment, I'm just subscribing to it, and then I can just make it available.
So we've got a good question from our friend TJ Brandon. Then I'm going to come back to the MCP on this. TJ, great to see you, my friend. Is there a CI/CD story for managing this ingestion through environments?
Yeah, so Eventhouse configures and is compatible with CI/CD and through your GitHub today. So what you would do is you would hook up your dev environment. You would set it up. I'd have to 100% check. I'm pretty sure it would just flow through. I know there are some things that don't flow through if you move it. So you might need to kind of reconfigure it since it is mostly a kind of a UI type experience. But that's definitely something I could check on for you, TJ.
Great question, TJ. Appreciate that. And again, just to reiterate, thank you all for all the people that we see that are live online with us. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. This is your time. Remember, we have the experts from the product group here right now. So if you do have questions, make sure and queue them up because as you see, we are definitely going to get to them. I love this, Chris. I absolutely love this because I can't tell you how often we're talking with people where they may have been doing something on-prem and they're migrating into Azure. And it could even be something like they were running in SQL Agent every 1 minute to be able to look and see if there were new files and pick them up. And it could have been an SSIS package. It could be a PowerShell script to be able to go, how do we pick this information up and how do we ingest this? And often what we'll have to do is we'll have to look at, hey, let's get it into Azure Blob Storage. Let's make sure we put an event grid on this. Let's make sure that, we can trigger this. And then typically we're triggering a logic app or an Azure function to be able to begin the process of the ingestion. And I love it that we can set this up. And the distinction is really great. If we got a private endpoint coming soon, but not there yet. If we don't have a private endpoint on our storage, we can go ahead and do this. And we are going to essentially auto load when we drop those files in. And that's been something that we have been missing from our big data story for Microsoft for quite some time. It's something where we could combine these other components, but we didn't have this story to go, here's how we're automatically going to process these files and ingest them. This is an architectural game changer here, in my opinion, because this changes the recommendation.
Yeah, that's why I'm so excited for it. And I didn't think about the SQL agent piece that you were talking about, but yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, I think when we look at how challenging it is to get a lot of data from a lot of different sources that live on-prem or live wherever, if you can just target a storage account and you can just drop it in a storage account, we can subscribe to it and we can just pull it in. And then you're really getting to, like you said, that's been missing for a long time, that ease of simplicity of really being able to kind of load that data in. And because it's all kind of through Eventhouse, you're just connecting to that storage account. You've got it loaded in. You can use OneLake availability and really quickly, easily replicate it down into OneLake.
Absolutely. So another quick comment from TJ. He said, thanks, guys. I'll be at SQL Saturday this weekend. Hope to see you there. Dan and Brad, you guys are definitely going to be down there in SQL Saturday, South Florida. We're doing a family birthday party up here, so I'm going to miss out on that, but I hate to miss it. What are you guys doing down there? What are some sessions that you've got for this weekend down in SQL Saturday, South Florida? And Brad, I promise you, we are getting to Data Warehouse. I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about SQL Saturday before we talk about Data Warehouse.
Dan, I'll let you talk about the couple sessions that you're going to be doing in the morning, but we've got a handful of Fabric sessions that we're going to do kind of middle of the day into the afternoon. Same way we did last year, actually. We have a whole room all day long for Dan and Brad. So we've got like 5 sessions, I think, that we're going to do, 5 or 6 sessions. But for the Fabric portion of the day, we're going to start out with just doing an intro to Fabric, kind of set everything up, level 100, tell everybody like what are the different workloads that are in there, how do I get started, like why do I even care about this Fabric thing, and then we're going to talk about also do some data warehouse stuff, like building your first data warehouse in Fabric. So we'll have all kinds of good stuff on the Fabric side of things. And then Dan's got a couple of really good sessions that we're going to be doing in the morning as well, if you want to talk about those, Dan.
Yeah, so we've updated, Brad, you and I are updating so you want to pass up your database, a really popular session that gets a lot of people. We added SAS in there, so you want to SAS up your database. We're going to start I know, it's so bad.
We've talked about this. I told you not to do that.
I know, yeah. And then we're going to
I need to get you one of those little spray water bottles, Brad, so you can just, when Dad doesn't get
and then the second session, speaking of real-time intelligence, I'm doing a session on Database Watcher, which uses real-time intelligence behind the scenes. So a lot of good stuff. Then we migrate into there. TJ, you're going to be there. Sam Maisel's going to be there. David Seiss from our Fabric user group up here in Tampa. It's going to be, that's it. It's going to be a good time. Diana runs a great SQL Saturday down there. So please show up if you're down in that area, and it's worth the drive. If you're in Orlando and you have a Saturday free, come down. I'll have some stickers. They're in demand, so first come, first serve. But I'll have some more Tales from the Field stickers. We gave a lot away at DataCon. So really excited.
Absolutely. Okay, so without further ado, let's definitely get to a couple things.
That is a question related to
sorry.
it. So maybe, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Let me back us back out. Is there an easy way to gather data like CPU RAM load from on-prem Power BI gateways and process them with RTI for some real-time monitoring? That would be really cool. Would be really cool.
There is, Bashti. I'm going to put a link in the chat for you. So one of the things we've published from the CAT team on the real-time intelligence space is to do exactly this. So you can deploy this, run it. Although actually, I don't know. Niraj, I might have to have you do it. It says that my comment has failed to post. But I'll put it I'll send it over to you. So what you can do is you can create a RTI monitor, and then you subscribe to, or you deploy it where your on-prem data gateways are. It monitors, observes it, and sends it all up into RTI and Fabric.
Hold on. Where have you been hiding this, Chris? We just did an SSRS to Power BI or Power BI service as well, migration to Power BI service. And we run our own scripts. So now guess what's going in the deck for that in the future? This is this is really cool.
This is great. Yeah, you essentially take your on-prem gateways, send it to the Eventstream. It's a great way to get started too with real-time intelligence if you haven't really deployed it or you're not using it in your environment today. Because I always tell people it's low risk, right? Nobody in the business is going to come to me and be like, your on-prem gateway monitoring RTI solution didn't work. Like they don't have anything today, so there's low risk to do it. But it's a great way to get started. It's a great way to monitor, observe, see what's happening on top of all your gateways, be able to get all the information that you want.
Yeah, I completely agree with Bashti. This is really, really great. As a matter of fact, I think this needs to be a video, Chris. So we gotta talk about this, because there was a solution a while ago for being able to manage and monitor on-prem data gateways, but it has been deprecated, like many things. And it was run from the CAT team initially, but when Fabric got integrated with Power BI, there were a lot of changes to the ways that the API calls would have been, and I guess for whatever reason, that project was just deprecated. So I love it that this is here. This is really, really amazing. But I know plenty of folks that are looking for the capabilities because especially for enterprise customers, we got a lot of folks with a lot of on-premise data gateways looking for a way to be able to monitor them. I think this is an absolutely fantastic thing. And I know Dan, being on our cloud acceleration factory team, is very excited about this, because this is a great way to be able to help monitor.
No, this is great. And by the way, folks, and I'm going to do a plug here. If you are doing migrations, if you're doing infrastructure as code, Unity catalog, some security, Power BI, Lakehouse, Fabric. If you're doing migrations and you're working with a partner or one of our account teams, you can nominate yourself to work with my team, and we can help you get accelerate to factory or to Fabric by doing it, and all for free. So if you have any questions, reach out via here. Got to put a plug in for my team, Brad. Got to put a plug in for my team.
Yeah.
All
Look, if you've got an account team or a cloud solution architect, they've got the capability to be able to nominate you to Dan's team, and Dan's team is absolutely fantastic. I would say, Dan, it's a complimentary service, and it's something that people should absolutely be taking advantage of, because you're getting Microsoft experts who do this all the time, and you guys work and coordinate with the product group, as evidence here. And we are always discovering and always learning. And I think that what Chris just shared is going to be a great thing that we can work in with a lot of different customers. I look forward to going through this, Chris, to be able to monitor my on-prem data gateway and see how hard I can push it as I'm loading data up. This is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, Brad, I promised you this minutes ago, and now I really need to deliver. I promise you we will talk about data warehousing at this point. Oh, another question. No, I'm just kidding.
No, go to data warehousing.
So the first thing we noticed in the pre-show when we were talking about it was actually the first thing for DW.
No. We're not going there. We're not going there. We're starting at the bottom. We're going to go results at cache first. Yeah.
There we go.
All right. We're going to start with the pure data warehouse stuff to start with. So if you're coming from the there's a few different worlds where this is going to make a lot of sense to you. So if you came from the dedicated SQL pool world, results at cache is probably something that's pretty familiar to you. The concept is that if you have a set of queries that you run multiple times, then sure, we've got all these different layers of caching inside of Fabric and inside of SQL in general, where we'll move data over to the local SSDs and we'll cache data in memory. But if there are data sets that you query fairly frequently, we also build this results at cache, because we know that things can get evicted from memory before, in maybe not a very long period of time, but the data might be something that you refresh fairly frequently. Think of like a Power BI report. When you come in the morning, maybe a bunch of people all hit the same Power BI report. Then it's essentially serving up the same thing over and over again. Maybe subsets of the data are a little bit different, but it's all come from the same core set of data. So rather than always having to go all the way back out to the cold storage and run the query again, in case that data has been evicted from memory or even from the local caches, what this will do is say, look, hey, I know you've already run this query. I know the data actually already resides inside of my results at cache. I'm not going to go rescan, potentially gigabytes or terabytes worth of data. I'm just going to go grab the pre-built results set, filter down anything that I might need to there, and then return the results back over to your T-SQL query or your Power BI report that might be running in direct query or whatever it happens to be there. So this is cool because, like I said, we've had this inside of the Synapse Gen 2 world for a long, long time. And we've gotten questions like, are we going to be doing results at caching inside of Fabric Data Warehouse or not? And sure enough, we're delivering that here. So it is in preview right now. You do have to go turn it on today while this is in preview. There's a link inside the documentation there to the results at caching preview documentation. It's a very simple, like one line of T-SQL code where you say alter database, set results at cache on. Do the same thing, alter database, set results at cache off in order to turn it back off. There's no real reason necessarily why you would need to turn this off for in any particular case. Like I can't give you there's these edge cases where maybe this doesn't work or it causes performance problems. Like, no, you're good to go turn it on, try it out. Like it's in preview here, see if you like it. Obviously, we do this so that you can prevent turning this on in production if you do want to go do some testing and things in a lower environment or anything like that. But super easy to get that turned on. There's also, as you can see there, inside the sys.databases, there's a column in there that tells you whether or not results at caching is turned on or off. The other thing that's super cool here that we do in Fabric that we didn't do in Gen 2 was people always ask us the question. They were like, okay, well, how do I know if my query hit the results at cache or not? Like, is my results at cache even working? Well, there's two ways we can check this. First of all, we can go and look at the in query insights. We'll tell you whether or not we hit the results at cache. But more importantly, and super cool here, if you go up one screenshot, Brad, there you go. So we actually tell you in the result set window whether or not the cache was used or not. So Query Insights is on a little bit of a delay, about maybe 5 minutes or so there to be able to get the data in there. So now you don't even have to wait to figure out whether my query used it. You can just look at the results output and you know exactly did this or did this not use the result set cache or not. So nice way to just be able to make that a little bit easier to find, a little bit more accessible. And go out there, check it out, give us some feedback, let us know what you think of it. Super fun if you're anybody doing Power BI, direct query stuff. This is certainly something you want to check out.
Dan, go ahead.
I've got a question. Mr. Kata.
Oh boy.
All right. So we know that.
What did you say?
It's the whole
He
Beach
called you
Boys
Mr.
thing.
Carter.
Just it's the whole Beach Boys thing all over again.
So
You embarrass me
confused,
daily,
man.
Brad. But no, I did have a serious question about this. Okay, so it's shared compute, it's shared capacity, right? F64. Let's say we have a lot of Dataflow Gen 1 sitting out there. We have some Dataflow Gen 2s, which we know can be heavy memory consumption. How does this all play with the shared capacity? Like if I turn this on from my database and I start using these shared query sets, right? This result set caching. If I start having a lot of those within my capacity, could there be impact to other items that need memory, or will it flush out in and out?
No, great question. So we actually don't. The storage location for the result set cache is actually on disk, so that for those situations we don't have to build a ton of result set cache in memory and then impact your other workloads. So each individual warehouse inside of your workspace is going to have its own dedicated set of storage that it will use for the result set cache. Like I said, that way we don't have to worry about each one of these stepping on each other's toes or using up all of our memory just to store the results set cache. And that's also one of the advantages, because like you said, all those processes often use a lot of memory as they're happening. So this allows us to persist that result set cache, even though you may be running these other memory intensive operations. And that way, when you do come back 15, 30 minutes later or whatever to run one of these queries, we're going to, even though the data is not in memory, we know it's in the result set cache. So we're going to go straight to there and grab it and get the data. So if it is in memory, that's obviously going to be the fastest. We'll use it there. If it's not in memory, we'll check for the result set cache. If it's there, we'll grab it from there. If it doesn't exist in result set cache, then we'll go and we'll scan the actual data inside the table. So we've got it tiered so that we can be intelligent about which one to use when.
That's
So
really cool because, oh, go ahead, Brad.
Is this a similar functionality, kind of like the extension of the BPE, where you had some level of SSD that was an extension of memory to be able to push those results out so you could page them back and forth a lot quicker?
I don't know exactly how they're moving the data in and out of memory. All I know is that like we persist it on disk, and I mean obviously whenever we go to hit that result set cache when it's on disk, then it will be brought back into memory at that point. I don't know the exact mechanics of how it moves in and out of memory at that point, but it will return it to memory whenever it's read from the cache. Yeah.
Okay. And so I do have a question. I apologize. I didn't ask you this in the pre-show, so I know I'm going live with this one. So you recently did a thing, and we're not going to talk about that a whole lot, but you had to go to another country and you had to help make things incredibly fast. Was result set caching, because I remember what a game changer this was when we had this in dedicated pools to be able to utilize this. Was this something that you used? Because you know, as we talked about, sometimes you get to deal with the biggest and the baddest and the toughest out there that are really pushing the limits. Did you utilize this to be able to make things faster?
We did not, because it missed it by 1 week.
Oh,
Otherwise I would have.
Okay. Okay. So, and
But
the
yes.
main reason I say that is if you had that tool, this would have been a tool that you would have been utilizing. And so when we look at performance,
Absolutely. Yeah.
everybody wants to go fast. This is something you're going to look at to be able to up your performance in your data warehouse.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, I mean, I know I mentioned like Power BI and reporting and those sort of things all the time, you know, a bunch there, but this could also be useful inside of like ETL operations. If you've got a stored procedure where you do an ETL and you repeatedly reference a data set or something inside of there, then result set caching obviously would be able to help in those scenarios as well. So it's not just for reporting. That's just mainly where this ends up coming into play. And the scenario that we're discussing here would have certainly helped with that, because there were many times where we would create working data sets and we would just go back and reference them over and over and over again to build out other data sets and do updates and that sort of stuff. So certainly useful for that as well.
Because you could throw all your dimensions right in the result set cache, because those are commonly hit time and time again while you're loading your facto. A lot of interesting. So one more question on this, Brad. So, and this is a possibility, right? A possible. So what I would expect to see then is, if we have a query that is extremely expensive from a CU perspective and we use result set caching, we could see an increase in disk space, but we could see a significant decrease in CU. And CUs are a little bit, I would think, more valuable than disk space, because disk space is cheaper, right? So you can drop the number of CUs, you can use them for more higher priority problems and offload your CUs to disk space. So I could see that becoming useful there. Is that a possibility this could solve?
Yeah, there's certainly the possibility that would happen. I mean, so keep in mind with result set cache, there's nothing that you do as a user. Like, you don't tag a query and say, this query I want to be in result set cache. We're going to manage that whole side of things for you. So what you're mentioning certainly is possible that it would happen. Like the case that I was referencing just a second ago with the ETL process, or like we talked about repeated Power BI report use. It certainly would have far less data to scan, which, as you mentioned, means lower CU usage. So that would certainly be just a natural byproduct of hitting that result set cache. The one thing I will call out, like, though, as with many things with caches like this, if you're using non-deterministic functions inside of there, then the cache isn't gonna matter. We're not even gonna cache that data, because it's never gonna, like, we can't guarantee that we're gonna hit the cache again anyway. So, I know it's a weird little rabbit hole there, but if you're a SQL person and you're like, oh, non-deterministic, like, if you know what I'm saying, then you understand what we're talking about here.
If you know, you know.
Just know that, yeah.
And now you know.
And now you know. So because this is SaaS, it's a set it and forget it. It's going to do all the work for you, right? Okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
So I have a question. Actually,
Go for it.
More of kind of an anecdote, but I'm super excited to see this, Brad, because this is a huge feature. I know it was used a lot in Synapse dedicated SQL pools, so super exciting to see it hit here. And especially when it comes to Power BI reports, when you need them to load, like the main page, some of those things that everybody always hits. Like, if there's a lag or if there's a delay, this is a great way to speed up those reports, because you just run the query once and then everybody else gets to benefit from that, right? So if you've got 100 users a day, the only person who really pays for it is the first person, and then everybody else kind of gets the benefit of that. So you're not rerunning that query every time. So it's super valuable. And then, so super excited to see this happen.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yes.
Cool.
All right, so Brad,
I'm gonna point us to one other item here as we wrap things up. It's going to be the T-SQL and Python code against DW. So I'll just mention real quick while this comes up here. You can, inside the T-SQL notebooks now, there's a query activity button inside of there where we'll actually show you the history of all the queries. It's kind of a shortcut to get into all the query insight stuff, to see everything that's run in the past. Just a little bit of a usability thing that's super nice. This piece here, though, is really, really cool, because this is what gives you the ability from Python, to be able to go and run a T-SQL query against your data warehouse or your SQL Analytics endpoint, and have that data brought back into your Python notebook to be able to use that data further down inside the notebook. So this is one of those things that's like, before this, you would have to set up like a JDBC connection and do like a service principal, and it was kind of a bit of a mess. There were like 5 different ways to do it, and all of them worked a little bit differently, and it was kind of just a pain. With this, though, now it's a single line of code. You just say, hey, I want to run this T-SQL statement against the following data warehouse inside of my workspace, or the following SQL endpoint inside of my workspace. Here's the database name. Here's the T-SQL command. And like I said, we'll bring back the result set, and then you can actually continue to use that in your notebook. The other thing that's super cool about this, though, is that inside of your T-SQL statement there, you can actually reference other variables from inside your Python notebook. So if you like pass in a variable and say table name, or you put a where clause on there and you say where item equals or date between, like you can pass those in, use those variables inside your T-SQL statement, and then you're good to go, continuing just to run that T-SQL statement against your data warehouse. And then the last thing that's cool about that is because we now have integration with the variable library inside of notebooks, which is another thing that was inside the update this month. Like that kind of opens up all kinds of possibilities, because now we can use our variable library in addition to any variables that we might have inside of our Python notebook, and pass any of that stuff into these queries, and kind of gives you just a really interesting way to kind of tie all these pieces together. You know, we always talk about how Fabric is supposed to bring all these different personas and all these capabilities together. This is just one more thing that helps bridge the gap between our Python users and our data warehousing folks out there. So super cool. Go out there, play with it. It's available for you today.
I absolutely love it. There's so many wonderful things that we've gotten with this, and to be honest, there were a lot of things that we were going to try and make it over to. The SQL, we talked a little bit about the SQL operator. That we didn't even get to talk about the transformations for shortcuts and delta tables. We're going to have to revisit MCP. Chris, I can't wait to talk about that, and I do love it that we have support for that out there, because that's going to be a really big deal. And in the last couple months, that's come about as an architecture that many people are going to have to look at how they consume. But I know we have run out of time. So real quick, what I do want to say is, first off, thank you so much for joining us today. Christopher Schmidt from the Real-Time Intelligence team, Bradley Schacht from the Fabric-DW team, Niraj, who's always rocking it over in our CXP organization, and Dan from our oh geez, I can never remember now that you guys have changed the name. That Acceleration Factory team. Dan does migrations. If you need help with a migration, go find Dan.
Just say factory. Just say factory team. It's the.
Yeah, no, it's not Microsoft if we don't rename it 4 or 5 times. As soon as people get used to it, we got to change it. We don't want you getting too comfortable, because you got to keep learning. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you in August next month, and I hope you join us to continue learning and looking at the great things we're doing with Microsoft Fabric. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And always be good to one another out there. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.